Hello, West Ham Network. It's Holly, and on the theme of international breaks, we are going to be chatting through some of the pros and cons of call ups and whether or not we're actually happy or not when players are called up to the England squad. Over the years, we've been desperate for many of our players to get that opportunity, and now we are getting that. We're starting to see it's a little bit of a double edged sword. So that's what we're going to be talking about. The inspiration behind this was, of course, that Lee Carsley announced the England squad, and as we saw, it did not include Jarrod Bowen. So Jarrod Bowen did come on as a sub against the Republic of Ireland and Finland in the last international break. And the ball just wasn't quite dropping how he needed it to for him to get the goals that I'm sure he desperately wanted. But he was clearly desperate to get on the ball and prove himself. And he did pretty well when he did get the opportunity. Bowen is, of course, though, up against the likes of Saka, Palmer and Madueke. So it's no easy feat to get the call up. And I can't say I'm absolutely devastated. And I think it could work in our favour, but this is what we're going to be talking about. The question that I've got for you is it a bit of a blessing in disguise if Bowen hasn't been chosen this time around? Because I think on this occasion, it's actually a pretty good thing, because against Ipswich was the first time that it felt like things were starting to perhaps begin to click this season. But it's either going to keep building from here, or that's going to have been a one-off and we're going to be very stressed as West Ham fans. And of course, international duty has reared its ugly head straight after that one good performance. But I think it's actually the best time for Bowen to not be in the England squad because of that, because now he can keep practicing that link-up play with our team. And now he's captain as well. It makes it even more important for him to be around as we try to start building that momentum that we need under our new head coach. So, of course, getting players called up is a great way to show potential future signings that they can have a bright career at our club, and it shows that they're playing well for us. So it's a big celebration of how well players are doing. People often complain that international managers typically favour players from the top six clubs. And it does mean that those clubs do have a bit of extra pull when it comes to bringing in new signings, or those that dream of playing for their country, which, let's face it, most players do. But there are also many benefits, which we're going to run through now, of not being called up. So let's talk through those quickly. So first of all, less fatigue. We have a lot of work to do. We've got a long season ahead. So having players reserve their energy for West Ham can only be a good thing. And then there is, of course, the reduced chance of injuries. Over the year, 3 players that got injured on international duty that really stick out to me are Lanzini, Antonio and Dean Ashton. Lanzini ruptured his ACL back in 2018, taking the best part of a year to even start playing again. And he was never the same player again once he did return. Then with Dean Ashton, he never recovered, obviously, from that broken ankle when he was training with England, eventually retiring as a result of that. And then, of course, we got excited when we had Füllkrug scoring for Germany last international break. And we thought, here we go. This is a little glimpse into what he can do for us. But then he ended up limping out of training with them. And it's meant that, again, we've never been able to see what he can do for us yet. So we have been burnt as a club multiple times when players do get the call up. So I think we're aware, as much as any other club, that there are pros and cons of it. And one of the questions is, why do so many players get injured when they're on international duty? So there's a lot of theories behind this, but we might as well discuss them. So one of the reasons is that they travel for long periods of time. They've got a lack of rest. There's different nutrition, all the things that they do day in, day out to make sure that they can perform at the standard that they need. It all gets changed a bit. They get a bit dehydrated. They're on planes. All of this stuff, as much as we say shouldn't impact it, it does somewhat impact what they're used to as players, and it changes the way that they recover. Then you've got the fact that some of the teams that we play against are somewhat less experienced, the players, which can result in a few dodgy tackles. But then you've got the change of pace. You've got different training, different facilities, different ways of moving, which, as much as they are professionals and this is their job to be at the peak of physical fitness, if you train in a certain way, switching that up completely overnight is always going to put extra strain on the body. And you've only got to look at things like this pitch here, speaking of facilities, that Jamaica were initially supposed to play on against Canada, to see the standard of some of the pitches is not what they are used to playing on in the Premier League. And the mad thing is that this game was initially delayed for 1 hour with pitch inspections taking place, and the hope that it would still be actually playable. And then when it was deemed playable, this was when Antonio ended up going off after, I think it was 18 minutes, injured. And that alone is enough to understand why players end up facing more injuries than they do on many of the perfect Premier League pitches that we've grown accustomed to. And then we've got the main reason that I think it's a good thing if Bowen isn't getting called up, and it's that he gets more time to practice with our own squad without going away for England. So it's never been more important than it is at the moment, because we desperately just need to gel and get playing time together with many of the teams possible. And I touched on it, that I think getting that momentum is going to be essential now for us to actually build on the last good result, rather than it being a bit of a fluke and a long road ahead. If we can take that confidence, we can get as many of the teams still working together rather than going off and playing for their countries, and actually work together with the formations and the players that we're hoping to actually start. I think it can only be a good thing, and hopefully actually give us something to build on. Naturally, if half of our team disappear and go off to play for their countries, you're not 100% ready for the next game. And yeah, we just need time to gel. Obviously, we did have pre-season, and we'd hoped that this would have happened a long time ago. But sometimes things do take time to build, and that's why I'm remaining patient. And I'm really hoping that that wasn't a one-off, and that this is the beginning of things falling into place. We started to see that attack that we know that we've got, the players that can link up like Bowen. But I just think they need that time, that confidence, working together, so they have that, when they have that telepathic ability to know where the ball's going to be placed and things like that, the only comes with spending time on the pitch together. That is the biggest benefit that I think there's going to be for Bowen not going. And as a captain as well, being able to support the team through this transition can only be another good thing. And finally, just means less distractions. Some people have already been asking whether the captaincy has made it more difficult for Bowen to perform in the way that we've seen him before. Personally, I don't think it is that. I think it's just that it's been a bit of a slower start to the season. There's a lot to deal with for all players at the moment, and they just need the time that I was talking about. But taking his mind off of West Ham and taking him over to play for England, I don't think would be ideal timing right now. So there are many reasons that it does work in our favour for Bowen not to get the call up this time around. But there are two sides of this argument. So I'm going to chat through now the benefits of players getting the call up as well. First of all, it can increase the value of players, which if they're players that you want to ship off is good. But Bowen is not one that we want to lose. So in terms of this situation of Bowen not getting the call up, that doesn't really benefit us. Then other players that we approach in upcoming transfer windows, they might see us as a way to get into their own international teams, which could make us more desirable than other clubs in the Premier League with less international players. Like we said, typically top six get a lot of call-ups, and that means that players that want to play for their country will naturally sort of sway that way, as well as things like European football. But we don't have European football, but there are things like having opportunities to get game time, which then gets you looked at for international call-ups that can make you more desirable. So that is another plus for anybody looking to come to West Ham, as well as keeping players at West Ham. Because if they're at West Ham and they feel like we're holding them back and not giving them opportunities to showcase themselves in the ways that they will get to play for their national teams, their careers are limited. They will want to do it as quickly as possible. So it is a good thing if you can help them get those call-ups by helping them develop as players and put them in that shop window, but not the shop window where they leave West Ham, because we want to keep these players for ourselves. And then, of course, ultimately, it makes players like Bowen happy. I think it's the pinnacle of any footballer's career. There are very few I can think of that said they wouldn't ever want to play for their country, even if it was once or twice. So it feels pretty harsh to be delighted that they've not been chosen. Plus, it gives fans someone to cheer on over international break. I know that I care so much more about the international games when I'm watching someone like Bowen. So I want to see how our players do. I want to follow them. And when we don't have football, it's the perfect time for us to watch other football. But ultimately, I want to see the West Ham players on that England pitch. But that's another one to consider, because it's just a little bit more entertaining for the international break. So that's kind of the arguments, the pros, the cons behind it all. But the question that I've got for you: how are you feeling that Bowen hasn't been included in the England squad this international break? Like I said, personally, I'm happy that he's been left out this time. Sounds really brutal, but I really think it will benefit us having all the focus on West Ham. And of course, I'd love for him to get the opportunity again in the future. I'm not saying I don't want Bowen to get the call up. I just think at this moment in time, us being able to pull together as a team, having as much of the team present, being able to focus 100% just on West Ham, building what we do, getting those results and starting to build that momentum in the league can only be a good thing. And hopefully we can see Bowen getting on the score sheet for some England tournaments coming up. That would be nice. And I'd like to think that this isn't his England opportunity over. He's got difficult competition, but if he can have a good season with us, I see no reason why he won't get another call up. Also, if there are injuries, obviously there's other opportunities for him to make his way into that squad. But let me know your thoughts down below in that comment section. If you're new around here as well, make sure you subscribe. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up button, support the channel. And until next time, have a great day and come on, you Irons. Irons.